This is Traxx FM, and it's time for Face to Face with your host, speaking to today's panelists. Face to Face, exclusively on Traxx FM.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Face to Face. It's Kong Yu with you on the show today. I hope you're having a good one so far. Stamped 16th July 2020. That's just the episode date. Hope you're having a good one so far as we delve into the important topic of water management, as well as overall the issues that we've been facing during the RMCO period. Yeah, here to talk more about this particular topic, I with me via the phone lines, Amlir Ayat, who's the Vice President of EcoKnights, to join us and to share his thoughts in terms of water, in terms of its key issues that the world is facing, and of course zooming into how Malaysians have to deal and have to come to more awareness towards water as well as sanitation issues in Malaysia and around the world, in fact, as well. Yeah. Welcoming over the phone lines, as I was saying, Amlir Ayat, just checking to see that all is well, the connection. Amlir, you're live now. Good morning.
Morning, I'm Kong Yu. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Understand busy schedule today. Thanks for taking some time out. I understand you're on site somewhere. Yeah. Let's start with the whole craziness of the time that we've been living in since the end of the first quarter of 2020, the MCO, and also the RMCO. How has that affected you? Share with us.
Okay. That's a very interesting question, because I find that RMCO is sort of a phenomenon where we learn how to live with the basic things. This is something which I believe is which tallies with the concept of being green. For some people, they see that living with the basic necessities or the essential services is the main thrust of living sustainably. I think that our previous way of life, our previous lifestyles, we use too much, or what we term now as overconsumption. We use too many things which we actually don't really need, but because of some other reasons, maybe for image purposes, we tend to use so many things. And that usage has, in one way or another, put a pressure on the environment before and after the usage of the product.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we last had a conversation. Was it face to face in the studios?
Sorry, what is that?
Do you remember when we last spoke? When we last had a conversation together, was it in the studios?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. And so much has changed since then. I think we last actually had our session right prior to the MCO as well, isn't it?
Yes. And now people have been talking about, we were having some teh-tarik discussions, and people start talking. Now, if we actually, this is a new norm, and people are getting used to it, does that mean that if we go back a little bit further behind, let's really concentrate on the basic things, or even something like this is going to the extreme, something like the orang asli in the forest will be able to save the world? And I say yes. I think I have to thank people, including the orang asli, for being there, because without them, without their way of life, maybe we're going to have a worse situation environmentally. I'm not saying that we should go back to that kind of lifestyle, but whatever we do in our life, we have to focus on the necessary things. It's difficult to get rid of our cars, even though I believe that car is one of the most environmentally problematic personal property that we have, because not only in the process of making that car that we have a lot of environmental problems which create human survival problems, but the stage of that car itself, where it uses a lot of fossil fuel energy. And of course, when a car is being dumped into the environment, once it's not used anymore, then you're going to have a lot of other problems too. So this is something that I think we have to think. No matter how much I think everybody has to start thinking, okay, I have a lot of so-called green things, but can I cover them up in other ways? For example, I don't throw rubbish everywhere, make sure that I throw my rubbish into the right places, or even reduce the amount of rubbish that I produce. So I think this MCO has given us, or at least me, some confidence that we can change our lifestyle.
Yeah.
If in a few days people can change their lifestyle to drastically to a new norm, there is no reason why we cannot change our lifestyles as far as water management is concerned in 5 years or even in 1 year. We can do it. We just need people to be aware why water is so important to our survival. We need to be a bit more aggressive on that aspect.
Yeah, you're right. And, it is a huge lesson on reverence for nature. Yeah, at the end of the day, this is the thing, isn't it? So nature has the ability. It is mass. It is immense. If we refer to her as Mother Nature, to sort of set things right, and there's a natural balance and order to things. So I think it is that that has been highlighted over and over again during as a key learning lesson during the MCO lockdown, as well as dealing with this whole COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That reminds me of what happened. I have a small patch of forest behind my house. During the MCO, I realized that there were a lot of birds that I haven't heard, whose calls I haven't heard before. During the MCO, I've heard 20 species of birds calling behind my house, and that's something which makes me more confident that we can do something, we can change significantly. Our behaviors can change, and it can improve the environment.
Okay. Zooming back into the topic for today, water. Do you feel that you said that, we all need to be more aware of the importance of water supply, sanitation, issues like that. Is there a crisis at the moment? How would you define it?
Sorry, I cannot really hear you.
In terms of, we spoke about, the importance of being more aware of the importance of water and water supply, right? Do you feel that there is some sort of a crisis at the moment, besides, the major occurrences of water disruption, and everybody, then gets upset because we urbanites don't get access to water, and that's when we're like, okay, we know then that it's the most valuable resource in the world. But overall, what's your opinion?
Okay, talking about crisis, I think there are two types of crisis here. One is the physical or the visible crisis, that is water shortage. I think in Malaysia, even in Selangor or Klang Valley, we are not really facing a water crisis, even though sometimes we have water rationing or water supply disruption. We can see that as a crisis in a very, very minor scale, because that involves a lot of issues on the mechanical, on maintenance and whatnot, which is something that we have to do. But the truth is that we have a lot of water resources in the country, even in Selangor, which can be supplied to the entire population. But the other crisis is the behavioral, or you can call it the mentality crisis. If the trend continues, then we're going to have a bigger environmental or physical crisis. And this mentality crisis is about our ignorance towards the importance of water, that we use too much water than needed. This is the basic thing about it. We do not care about the fact that if we use too much water, we're going to have a lot of problems in the near future. And in some cases, it has happened. Even though we have a lot of water in the country or in the state of Selangor or in Klang Valley, but if we continue with the trend of, let's say, using water at 250 liters per person per day, in the future, we're going to have a problem. This is the crisis that we have to be prepared for and have to take a lot of effort in reducing it. For example, if we believe that 200 liters per day is too much for every person to use every day, then we have to work out on something to reduce that. We can create new policies, even though it's going to take a long time. This is what, I've gone through this discussion with some of the water management experts in the country. It's going to take a long time to change the policies about water and also about even on educational reforms. But the other way of doing it is to go to the grassroots, to go to the public, to go to the schools and talk to the people about how we can help solve this problem, this mentality. Why is so important? What is the present situation with water management in Malaysia? How can we solve this problem? Make sure that we will never have water disruptions anymore. This is something that we need to highlight among the public. So if you ask me about crisis, as far as water supply is concerned, there is no crisis. But talk about the mentality trend amongst Malaysians, I think it's something that is very serious. For me, it's very serious. You can see that even during rationing events, when water is being rationed, you can see people washing their cars and watering their plants, which are not necessary at all, because there are other people who want to use that amount of water.
Exactly. Perspective, right? Jumping ahead, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit on the World Water Development Report 2020. Water and climate change that was released in the second half of March, as we went into MCO for us in Malaysia. 2.2 billion people do not have access to safely managed drinking water. This is like a quarter, I believe, of the world's population.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? Yeah. And putting that into perspective, like you were saying, and then sometimes for us in Malaysia, we take our plentiful resources like water for granted, yeah?
Yeah, sure. We may reach that situation, maybe not the entire country, but we may have that situation in the future if we do not take the right actions right now. Because water is the other issue is water pollution. We may have a lot of water in Malaysia, but then if a lot of that water supply is being polluted, then either we cannot use it or we're going to have a lot of money spent to treat that water to be supplied to the public. This is another issue. We may have a lot of water, but we have to remember the amount of water in the world, let alone in Malaysia, is fixed.
Right.
So the more you use, the more you pollute. And the more you pollute, the less amount of water that you have for economic treatment.
That's right. So going back to essentially the importance of, it's not just a consumption thing, it's also how we essentially treat the environment, in terms of pollution, and any sort of pollution, as we've seen, can greatly upset the operating of any water plants,
Of course.
So, yes. So, go ahead.
Continue.
No, I was saying, I think it's nice time for a short little breaker here. I'm just going to get you to hold the line, right? And we'll be back in a bit, and you can a bit of catch up on your breath, yeah?
Okay, sure.
Okay, hold on, yeah?
Face to Face will be back right after this. Stay tuned to know more about today's topic exclusively on Traxx FM.
Welcome back to Face. It is Kong Yu with you this hour with Amlir Ayat, Vice President of EcoKnights. We're talking about water, especially a couple of the shortages that have occurred during the RMCO period overall. It's interesting, isn't it, Amlir, that we also saw just a little side note here on how a lot of what's natural. Talk about rivers, for example. Seriously, in terms of the water quality and all, really improved, over the MCO period.
Okay. It's really heartening to see that some of the rivers have been clear, and one river which struck me was the Sungai, I think it's Sungai Rambai in Malacca, which looks like they call it the Maldives of Malaysia. I'm not sure whether I got the term right. But yes, and people ask me, are they really clean? Now, of course, visibly they look clean, but we have to be very careful to look at the actual quality of that water, meaning that we have to test that water. Sometimes the water may look clean, but they are not actually. Maybe there are some chemicals or other volatile components which can hurt people's lives. So I believe we are still, a few people are still studying on that, and it's quite a daunting task because we need to know the quality of the river before MCO and during MCO and now, so that we can really get a good and credible understanding or data of whether it is really MCO which is leading to the water quality improvement, or if the water quality really improves. So this is something that people are still studying to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples, not just by looking at one river or two rivers, but maybe a few rivers, to be really sure that yes, we have a significant amount of data to show that MCO does an effect. If we can show this, that MCO has an effect, a good or positive effect on water river quality, then we can say that, okay, it means that maybe it has to do with a lot of our behavior. What is it? How many times we go out? How many times do we buy things? The more things you buy, I mean, before MCO, we go out and buy things and whatnot. And what do we do after that? Some of the things may have wrappers, and these wrappers are sent to the landfill or maybe just on the road, and this will, in one way or another, affect the water quality of the rivers. But during the MCO, assumingly, we may not be able to do that anymore, which means that we may reduce our consumption of products which use wrappers. But again, there have been arguments that if during this MCO that people are using more containers, more plastic wrappers. Why? Because we order food online.
Right.
So every product that is sent to our house will be wrapped in something which may not be biodegradable at all. And this may cause a lot of problems to the environment in the future. It may be worse. We can never tell yet.
Yeah, on that note, I really appreciated there were some food establishments that did a very good job with that, right? So it's like they get a big plus point because, they used the biodegradable plastic bags, that's one, right? And
that's good.
Yeah, and then in terms of food containers, so some of them also either they use the, in a way, the more slightly more acceptable paper ones, that's one, as well as the microwavable containers, which has to be disposed of properly anyway in the normal situation even, yeah?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So just want to catch up with you. In a previous interview, you said, the plan to have off-river water storage facilities is a good thing. What's the latest development on that?
Okay. Just to give a brief introduction to the listeners of what is Horas, or the hybrid, what we is a shortened name for hybrid off-river augmented storage.
Okay.
Which means that when the river is identified as having a significant excess water flow, then we can actually use that water to be retain the water, and then can be used for other purposes, mainly for water supply and to dilute water pollution in case we have a bad pollution in the water in Selangor, and also to reduce water supply, and also to reduce flooding. So this is Horas. And in Selangor at the moment we have two Horas projects. The first one is called Horas 600, meaning that it is capable to supply 600 million liters of water per day to the population of Selangor. That is, if 600 million liters per day, that is about, it can cater for about 30% of the present Selangor population, just in case 30% doesn't have water at all, which is is which is very, very highly unlikely. The other one is now that Horas 600 is already in operation. It's already operating.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is Horas 3000. Horas 3000, of course, it supplies 300. It can supply 3,000 million liters of water per day, and it is still under construction. And hopefully by next year, it will be able to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So Horas, basically, like I said earlier, there are a few objectives of Horas. First is to reduce our dependency, our dependence of water resources from the water public supply.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, to mitigate flooding, to slow down flooding. We may have floods, but the existence of these Horas projects may be able to reduce that because the water will be stored in the ponds instead of, flooding other areas. Okay? The Horas are big ponds, a collection of big ponds. The other objective is to be used as emergency water source during drought. And finally, to dilute, like I said earlier, to dilute water pollution of Selangor River. Just in case the water of Sungai Selangor is very highly polluted, then they can use the water supply which has been treated in the Horas project to dilute the river so that it won't cause any harm to the environment or the set of people.
Interesting, eh? Well, thanks for that updates and also the brief to our listeners, yeah? Earlier on, I was referring to the World Water Development Report 2020, titled Water and Climate Change, with Sustainable Development Goal 6 being put in focus. This came out, I think it was the 20th of March, I believe. And in this report, it was proposed two solutions, adaptation and mitigation, in terms of generally increasing, the water supply to places around the world, as well as in response to climate change, isn't it? Walk us through this. What these two solutions are, and as Malaysia, should we be equally concerned? I know we should all have a better perspective in terms of water usage, but in terms of what is proposed in the Water Development Report 2020 and its relevance to us in relation to these two solutions, what's your opinion?
Okay, these two measures, adaptation and mitigation, are the base measures towards better water management or wiser water management.
Okay.
Adaptation normally refers to, in general, in general, adaptation means you adapt with the amount of water which is available and try to reduce and get used to wise water management. Try to get used of using water only when necessary, using amount necessary for any purposes, and make sure that the purposes are only the necessary purposes for health, for drinking, for showering, for washing and whatnot, and not use water excessively. And this is something that I think makes sense. People should know that there is no reason why we should use water in a wasteful manner. This is something that, like I said earlier in previous sessions, that's something which has to be nurtured at the school level, even at the preschool level. In other countries, for example, even in China and in some Norwegian or European countries, children are being taught at the preschool level to use water only during necessary and only when it's necessary and in the needed amount, not the wanted amount, the needed amount. Because overseas, in some of those countries, they don't have as much water as we have. They have very limited amount of water, and they have to take really aggressive actions, especially in the educational aspect, to make sure that people, they can enforce themselves, self-enforce to use water wisely. And this is something that I want to stress also. A lot of people talk about enforcement and everything, through regulations and laws and acts and whatnot. But I believe the best enforcement is self-enforcement. And that self-enforcement has to come right from the heart, from the understanding. Okay, I need to take care not only for myself, but for other people. Respect for other people, caring for other people. If we have those two qualities in internally, then you're going to use environmental resources in a wise manner. And this has to be from the preschool level, from the primary school level. People, we have to make them use. And I think this is something which fits into the concept of adaptation proposed by or produced by that document that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can be mitigation.
Yes.
Mitigation is something which is trying to mitigate, to reduce the problem, which is some sort like the first one, but more at the policy or the top management level, where we talk about measures to stop or to reduce or to minimize water problems. For example, forest project. That is one mitigation measure where we can actually hope to reduce or mitigate water problems in the state. We also have other mitigation problems, for example, flood mitigation problems.
Mm-hmm.
How can we reduce flood and causing harm to people? This is something that we have been actively doing in Malaysia, I believe.
Yeah. So interesting thoughts there. And you were saying at the core of it actually is nurturance, like you were saying, not just at primary school level or school level, but it starts from the family, yeah? Essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, opinions with us today, even though, like I said, you're on site as well as having a few key things to attend to, right? But in terms of the World Water Development Report 2020, as well as for you guys at EcoKnights, and all things to do with water awareness and importance of it as being a resource, where can we go for more information and also maybe tie into some of the activities that you guys are handling?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
We are organizing this class with our annual activity. This is going to be the 13th Kuala Lumpur Eco Film Festival, class 2020. So if people want more information, then they can go to our site. We are expecting this program to be launched on October 8th. There will be a lot of interesting films about environment and also nature resources management and how people all over the world have worked together to create a better living environment. So this is something which might be which might be inspirational and also motivating for all of us. How other people have been working towards improving or achieving sustainability. This is what EcoKnights is all about, living sustainably. And we also have, for those who are interested in doing what we call this urban farming, we also have a few projects around in Klang Valley where we are involved with school children and also communities to set up organic farms and to reduce their dependence on so-called unhealthy products from the market. They plant their own vegetables or fruit trees, and this will also help to improve the river banks, because when you plant a lot of trees along the rivers, it will help improve the river banks and reduce erosion, which may cause water pollution. In addition to that, we also have classes and what we call the School of Sustainability, where we open our participation from the public to learn more about how we can, at the individual level, help to improve the environment. I believe that every individual has that power to change, and they have the options. We want people to do the right thing. We are not telling people what to do, but we are giving them why is it important for us to do this and to create options. Different people may have different ways of doing things. So we are opening that panel to let people to discuss and do things which will be much greener than before. Right. And we also have an iCycle facility at the office where people, especially nearby the office, can send recyclable stuff to the office, and this will be taken to be changed or processed into something else to reduce our.
Yep, perfect. Thank you for that extensive brief as well as to what's happening. Congrats on bringing also a lot of components of Clef online, right? These days.
Thank you.
So that's amazing stuff. All right, thanks for spending this hour with us. Appreciate it, Amlir.
Thank you, Kong Yu.
All right, you take care. Yep.
You too. Take
All
care.
right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that, of course, with the wrap of today's Face-to-Face on water, importance of water, as well as a reference to a couple of the crises in terms of water shortage, being the focus of the face-to-face topic for the day. Stay tuned. Up next, the brief noon news updates before heading into the afternoon hours of today's Momentum. My name is Kong Yu, and you know what to do. Keep it locked right here on Traxx.
That's all the time we have for today's Face to Face. We'll be back next week with your host speaking to the panelists discussing interesting topics. Join us next week, Face to Face, exclusively on Traxx FM.